right. Welcome. Yeah, David, since that was the industry you worked in for so long with maritime shipping and so on and so forth, quite something. I hear that they've got things opened up a little bit for some ships. I don't know. I haven't read the article, but I think I saw something about that. All right, everyone's like, what the hell's he talking about? Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our gosh, there's a fancy word to next to last. Penultimate. There we go. Welcome to our penultimate lecture. There's your vocabulary word for the day. It means next to last. I always say this is one of my favorite lectures. Every single time we start, I say this is one of my favorite lectures. This is one of my favorite lectures. I really enjoy this one. Like Mike Lefebvre, Steelworker, this one really affected the way I think about a lot of things. And when I first came across these readings about 10 or so years ago. So I really enjoy it. So with that, let's go ahead and kind of get started here. So let's kind of catch up on where we are. All right. First part of the semester, we talked about what is business and so forth. And then slowly over time in the West and so on, there's second to last already, right? It's crazy. Slowly over time, we developed the philosophies of capitalism, at least in the West, right? Western Europe and the US and so on. Capitalism really took root, but then, of course, we talked in some detail about the troubles, the issues, the Achilles heel to capitalism. And we also discussed how we try to address these and so forth. Well, what we're talking about today is kind of now that capitalism is running rampant and firmly ensconced in the West, what's that doing? Well, it's doing a whole lot of things. But one thing it's doing is it's creating a consumer economy. Now, a consumer economy is it's an economy that is based on consumption. Consumption is the goal. Consumption is the objective. For an economy to be healthy and strong and continue to grow and be vibrant, people must consume. And so we're going to talk about how this evolution sort of came about and what it's done for us today, okay? So with that, wrong button. Let's do over here. There we go. We're going to start. We're doing a whole bunch of readings today. We're going to start with The Dependence Effect by John Kenneth Galbraith, right? So let's start some discussion. Let's get some light bulbs going. How many hats, jackets, or pairs of shoes do you own? So I'm going to go ahead and throw in here, I own, and just give me a range, I own well over a dozen hats. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about hats. What about hats, jackets, or pairs of shoes? How many do you own? I probably have about 6 pairs of shoes. Jackets that I wear, I think I have about 4 jackets that I wear. Let's see, Brittany, 3 pairs of shoes. That seems rather sensible, right? Okay, now David says well over 20 hats, right? Okay. Jay, too many of all, says Sid. 9 jackets, right? Okay. Says Eldon, Jocelyn, 20 or so pairs of shoes. Wow. Okay. Now, again, this is not me giving you a hard time because remember, I'm talking about 20 hats. going to talk about this. Okay, Brittany, a few jackets, not too many, maybe a dozen pairs of shoes, says Jamie, and so on. Excellent, excellent. Okay, now the reason I do this is I'm going to give you a hot take. I'm going to give you a hot take. Yarn. That would be my wife's issue there, Brittany. I'm going to give you a hot take. 4 or 5 of any of these, that's perfectly reasonable. You take something like pairs of shoes. You need a pair of shoes for your daily wear. Maybe a fancy pair. Maybe if you go to a church or a synagogue or a mosque, you need nice shoes. Or if you want to go on a date. If you want to go shovel the snow, you need some boots. Or if you want to go hiking. So 4 or 5 pairs of shoes is pretty reasonable. Same can be said for jackets. There's different kinds of weather, so you need different kinds of jackets. But, if you layer right and so forth, you can get by with 4 or 5 jackets. But as our discussion shows, right, and I'm going to just throw in another for grins and giggles, there's a lot of things that we have a lot of. We have an awful lot of. And this is what we're going to discuss today. So I'm going to be coming back to these, a couple of skeletons too. Oh, for the win, Jay. So we're going to come back to this because this really exemplifies in real time what we're talking about today. All right? So let's build up to this. Let's come back over here. Hey, if you have taken any economics class, even in high school and so forth, you understand what Galbraith would call the neoclassical view of economics. And you've heard this a million times. He says, listen, the neoclassical view is that consumer demand drives production. So it's not hard to understand. As consumers want more and more, production ramps up to meet the demand. But likewise, if demand drops, production drops because the demand isn't there. It's classical supply and demand. We don't need to talk about this in depth because you get it, all right? And I have a few examples up here of it totally works, right? Google Glass. By the way, Google Glass was like this big failure, but it's kind of coming back with the Meta Ray-Bans and so forth. MP3 players before Apple got it right with their iPods failed. It's the Zoom, the FaceTime, the video phone calls. That technology has been around since the 1960s. Dead serious. But it's only recently that it's kind of caught on, right? So all kinds of examples of products that failed because there was no demand, okay? By the way, Brittany, I kept losing my calculators during my math class. Yeah, and I have students come to me all the time when I'm on campus and say, hey, can I borrow a calculator? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have one. I know why you need it. You can't take in your phone, but I need to bring some calculators to my office for that. Yeah, totally. But now here's the thing with Galbraith. He says this isn't the way it works in most cases, okay? He says it is not the consumer who dictates the terms of the industrial system, but rather the companies that produce and market goods and services. He says these companies manufacture an abundance of contrived wants, which they then market heavily. An abundance of contrived wants. We're going to talk about all of these things. I'll give you an example. Christmas. We don't have to use Christmas as an example, but because you get it. But over here in the far right corner, Halloween. When I was a kid, Halloween was nothing. Okay, it's like maybe the day before Halloween, your parents would go rummaging around in some old clothes and throw together a costume, or I'm dead serious, the old Charlie Brown, use a bed sheet and cut eyes in it. That was a standard costume for us. There was no ritual around Halloween. However, today, speaking for myself, we spend hundreds and thousands of dollars decorating our homes for the entire month of October. And yes, my wife and I get really into Halloween decoration. And so we're spending hundreds of dollars each year getting more and more stuff. This is a contrived want. You don't need it. You'll want it. And the industry wants us to keep buying because it's what keeps the economy going. Now, here's my favorite example. See this thing? It's my favorite example for two reasons. One is nobody in the history of mankind has ever, when sitting on the throne, thought, I really wish I could practice my putting right now. There's no need to this at all, right? So it's a great example of how we produce for production's sake and we consume just because we can consume. Here's my third reason I like this. In the 6 years I've been using this example, I have had 3 students say, I've got one of those. This is not a ridiculous sort of picture that I've had. I have students who have these things, okay? And so this is the dependence effect. Now, this is not from the reading. Not from the reading, but it's really good. Oh my gosh, I should totally get rid of Galbraith and change it over to Victor Lebeau, okay? So I'm just trying my best to keep up with you guys. My God. Okay. I love it. So this is good. We're going to come back to Victor Lebeau a couple of times, right? And he's an American economist from 1955. He said, our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we convert the buying and use of goods into rituals, that we seek our spiritual satisfactions, our ego satisfactions in consumption. We need things consumed, burned up, worn out, replaced, and discarded at an ever-increasing pace. Okay, let's break this down. So, our enormously productive economy. Well, now, here's the thing. This was 10 or so years after World War II. We got really, really, really good at producing stuff during World War II. So then we win the war, we come on home, and now we've got all this production capacity. And we need to employ all these returning soldiers and so forth. And they're baby booming. They're making kids everywhere. So we need to convert this wartime economy into a peacetime economy, right? And so we're converting our, bombers into Boeings and so on and so forth. Don't get started on that right now. And so we need to contrive reasons to purchase. You can't just tell somebody, hey, when you need something, come buy it, right? We need people to want it, to need it. All right, so check this out. We convert the buying and use of goods into rituals. I now want to tell you why I have over 20 hats, over a dozen, probably about 20 hats. Something I didn't tell you. I don't really wear hats. I don't wear hats, but I've got a whole bunch. One of these days I need to bring a whole bunch in here to show them to you. Why do I have 20 hats if I don't wear hats? Well, because of this. My wife and I like to go to Vegas every once in a while. Whole bunch of reasons, but we like to go to Las Vegas. We go probably every couple of years, we'll go once. And in the malls in Las Vegas, there's this really cool hat shop, all right? And we love going to the hat shop. And so every time we go to Vegas, we'll buy a hat. And my wife buys hats too. She has these great, big, amazing sort of Easter go to the, horse races in the South antebellum hats. She's never worn them, and I haven't worn mine. But we keep buying them. It is a ritual for us. It's a ritual. Now, before you get all high and mighty and tell me what a loser I am, think about this. Just say me, if this applies to you. Have you ever thought, I'd really like to ask so-and-so out on a date, but I'm broke? Ergo, I can't ask them out on a date. Have you ever thought, I'd like to go on a date, I'd like to ask so-and-so, but I'm broke, so I can't right now? So Gardner, me, right? Right? So now, Gardner, I'm with you, right? But now here's the deal. Why? Why do we need money to go on a date? You don't need money to go on a date. Trust me, when you get married, you start to realize that you don't need money to go on a date. You can go mall walking. You can go to a park. You can take a drive in the mountains. You can, watch a streaming movie, right? But now, J, you get it, right? Yeah, free dates exist. But J says monetary value and status. Sure, you could ask someone out on a date and then say, I'm broke, so we're just going to kind of take a walk in the park. And maybe that'll be great. Or what you really are thinking is they're going to think you're a loser. Why would I want to hitch my wagon to this horse if they're so cheap that they can't pay for a dinner, pay for a movie, pay for, an escape room, whatever you kids do these days, right? And so we have turned consumption into a dating ritual, okay? So now, quality time. Yeah, I'm with you. Found it hard for me to make up my mind on what car I should bring on the date. Oh, I love it. Okay, so now, what about spiritual satisfactions? Well, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You're young, so you may not know. But Easter and Christmas are religious holidays. I know, right? Who would have thunk it? I mean, when you look all around at the stores and the buying and the shopping and the decorating and the, constant music and the movies and all this sort of stuff, clearly this is set up to be a consumption holiday. And so we have turned our spiritual satisfaction into a consumption experience. I want to go ahead and tell you a story. A good many years ago, I was broke. My wife and I were broke. And Christmas was coming. And so we sat down with our kids. Now, the kids were teenagers, right? So they're not itty-bitty, but still, they were teenagers. We sat down with our kids and said, hey, we can't do Christmas this year the way that they are used to Christmas. We said, we're going to buy a tree, and we're going to decorate the tree, and we'll do some stockings, and we'll still have our dinner and our breakfast and all that sort of stuff. But there won't be gifts, there won't be huge activities, there won't be all this sort of stuff. Now, to their credit, they're like, that's fine. They didn't care. That's fine. But as a parent, it was really hard for us to go to our children and say there will be no presents. because the giving of presents is synonymous with Christmas. Therefore, consumption is synonymous with Christmas. So, just a thought. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to just hit this again because you guys are just on fire. Okay. Oh, by the way, what about ego satisfactions? How do we use consumption for our ego satisfactions? Give me some of your thoughts. I'll tell you mine right now. I have maybe $20,000 worth of equipment in this room. And it's just because I love doing this crap. And I love hearing all you guys say, oh, Lon, this was really good. And I love seeing the discussion. This is ego satisfaction. Okay? I know that sounds shallow. We're going to talk about that, about shallow. But if I'm honest with you, I want to be successful. I want to be admired and respected. And so to do this, I spend a lot of money trying to pull something like this off. What about the clothes you wear? I like what Jay said earlier about what car should I drive, right? Status is in our cars. Status is in our clothing. What are ways? Nice haircut. Gosh, even for a dude, a haircut is expensive. But you ladies, you have longer hair, a little bit more involved. A nice haircut, I mean, you come away looking like the bomb, but that was like a $40 haircut or something. And that's just for ego satisfaction. If you get your nails done, oh, forget about it. All right? Nails are really expensive, and you got to maintain them every couple of weeks and so forth. Trust me, I know. I have wife, I have daughter, I have all that good stuff. And this is all for ego. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to talk about it. I mean, I wouldn't be calling it out if I weren't saying I need ego satisfaction too. So Sid says shoes. Yeah, shoes are a great example, right? Brittany, you satisfied by expensive things, not my ego is satisfied by accomplishing and writing goals. Yes, very good. All right. It doesn't always have to be in spending of things. However, I will point out, Brittany, that you pointed out that you have a lot of books and those books cost money. There is, I know because I have probably 500 to 1,000 books. I get ego satisfaction by surrounding myself with my books. I have a whole bunch of old books here on the shelves that I just think are so cool. I mean, look at how old and awesome that is. That's ego satisfaction. Okay, so let's put those books back. All right. Let's see here. Buying a car, investing, yes. You have a buzz cut now. Hey, long live the buzz cut. More like $70, says Jocelyn. 40 would be a steal for a nice haircut. Oh, gosh. Girl, that's hard. I mean, someday I'll tell you the story of this haircut. There's actually a story behind this haircut, but it's free because my wife just takes a razor to it. And I think, imagine the money I'm saving by being bald. Yeah. Let's see. No, I don't have any Emily Dickinson, Gardner. I don't think I do. But Brittany does. Yeah, very good. Okay. All right, let's keep going. And yeah, you guys, you're going to break the system today. That's a good thing. Okay, now remember, what's his name? Victor Lebeau said we need things consumed at an ever-increasing pace, right? Well, there's a few ways they do this. One is called planned obsolescence. This is not a conspiracy. This is a standard business practice. The idea of planned obsolescence is you want to make something that lasts only so long, okay? you don't want it to last forever, because if it lasts forever, you can't sell another one. And remember, we need people buying things. So if somebody buys something and then they never need another one, that doesn't work to the advantage of the economy. We need people to constantly replace things. It's an outdated example, but what I really like as an example here are color printers. It's cheaper to buy a new printer than it is to replace the ink cartridges. I'm not making that up. Okay, when you buy the printer, it was $120. If you want to replace the ink cartridges, it's $300. So just buy a new printer. So this is a way that they can do planned obsolescence. Now, check out this video sometime. This is by Veritasium. He is a highly, highly credible science investigative YouTube channel. I'll put my chips on him any day. He talks about light bulbs and the whole history of how light bulbs, the incandescent light bulbs, are a result of a conspiracy of planned obsolescence. So check out this video sometime. One of your favorites? Okay, iPhones, electronics, hardware don't hold up lifetime standard. So the batteries, right? The batteries, Jay, the batteries are designed to degrade over time. Furthermore, when you get all those updates on your phone, just know that each update has slowed down your phone by a second or two. This isn't conspiracy. Apple has been sued in the EU, the European Union, for this kind of behavior and has had to pay billions of dollars in fines and has had to change some of its business practices because they would intentionally cause the batteries to reduce battery life and intentionally cause the phone to slow down to the point of where you just had to buy a new one, even though the phone you had was perfectly good. Okay, so yes, you're all bang on right there. Let's see. Printers, yes. Okay, so Brittany, I have a really nice laser printer. This laser printer is literally like 30 or 40 years old, and I rue the day that it finally dies because I know they don't make them like that anymore. I've been able to nurse this printer along for a very long time, and I know as soon as it dies, I'll need to buy a new one every 5 years. Turn off the updates, yes. They don't make them like they used to, holds true in this practice. So by the way, it's really true that they don't make them like they used to. There's another video I really like by the Wall Street Journal that talks about why they don't make them like they used to. And it's all economic. So they want to sell things at more and more of a reduced cost. They want low cost, A, so they can sell more units, and B, they can increase their profits, okay? So what they have done over the years is they've changed the material from this material to that material because it was lower cost, from this manufacturing method to that manufacturing method because it's a lower cost, from this region to that region because it's a lower cost. And it's all, each time they reduce the cost and the quality by 1%, all of this stuff aggregates into a product that just doesn't last anymore. So if you search Wall Street Journal and reduced quality and cost on YouTube, maybe you can find it, or maybe I'll look for it and I'll send it out to you. It's really fascinating. Yeah. Let's see. Make sure to take care of what you have. My dad always told, yes. Take care of what you want, of what you really like. Where's the pride? Okay. Pride in creating a product is something that an individual feels. Corporations owned by shareholders don't take pride in the product. They take pride in the annual returns, the quarterly returns. They're not in it for the pride of manufacturing. They're investing to make money. So, and this is fair. I mean, I invest in my 401k, or at least somebody invests my retirement in my 403b because it's a nonprofit. I have no idea what I'm investing in, but I sure as hell want a return. So pride in manufacturing, that only happens if you're a small business. I'm sorry. That's my hot take. That's my hot take. Okay, let's keep going. Now that's planned obsolescence, but now we've got perceived obsolescence. Perceived obsolescence is what you've got still works perfectly fine, but it's so last year. Now, this is where fashion really comes into play. New shoes, new shirts, new jackets, new this, that, and the other, because fashion is all about perception. That is what it is driven on. And they want what's this season's color? What's this season's cut? It's like, what do you mean this season? This shirt still works perfectly fine. It's a 15-year-old shirt. Oh, yeah, well, you're an old man. You can get away with that. By the way, Christina says, side note, buy an Epson printer. They have line of printers which ink is made to be refillable. Yes, look for printers with refillable ink. I totally agree with that. Me and I'm unpacking my heels as I'm watching this. Jocelyn, and it's really true. Heels, sometimes they're in fashion, sometimes they're out of fashion, sometimes they're tall, sometimes they're short, some medium, and so forth. This is perceived obsolescence. I fall to it as well. Don't think for a moment. Never think that when I'm saying something that you are doing, that I don't do it as well. We all do it, okay? I'll show you. See this camera? This is what I used to shoot on, this camera. It's a good camera. That camera that I'm shooting on is slightly better. And it only cost me $4,000, so why wouldn't I do it? And now, my friends, that camera has an upgrade. I'm not going to get it, but I feel the pull. Okay? Cars are masters of perceived obsolescence. Absolutely agree. Phones, by the way, if you had to replace your phone because of a dead battery or it's too slow or so on and so forth, that's planned obsolescence. If you replaced your phone because you want more pixels in the camera, that's perceived obsolescence because more pixels don't matter. We can't see the pixels anymore anyway. And so if we are upgrading for something like that, that's a perceived aspect. Okay. Would you relate to the practice of planned obsolescence to the deterioration of our infrastructure, bridges, planes, and so on and so forth? No, I would not. However, by the way, just bust this up. I would not put that to planned obsolescence because when we are building, let's take roads, for example. You mentioned a whole bunch of things in infrastructure. Let's take roads. Our roads do not last as long as the roads in Europe. Now, there's a reason for this. I forget which country specifically, but there are some countries in Europe where the manufacturer on the road has to guarantee the road for 50 years. And I'm just making that number up, but it's a huge number of years. And any potholes or cracks or any issues with the road, the company needs to take care of it free of cost, right? But now there's also a lot more taxes in Europe. And so they will pay far more money for roads and infrastructure and so forth in Europe because they have higher taxes that compare for the higher quality. But then they also make sure that the manufacturer is on the hook for guaranteeing these roads. Whereas here in the U.S., we really, really strive for low taxes, and for good reason, and I'm on board. But there's a cost to low taxes. That is that we award jobs to the lowest bidder. So when you see roads being made, those roads are being manufactured by the lowest bidder, which probably means to some extent the lowest quality, which is why we get the potholes and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't put that to planned obsolescence. I would just put that to you pay for what you get, which is definitely related to this topic. So yeah, I'm on board with you. Maintenance tags overlooking, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Now, wants asserting themselves as needs. As I said, I got this camera. It's a really good camera, but then I saw that camera and I really wanted it. And now I see other cameras. I do not need these cameras. I want them. So now, if you want something, it's not enough to just say you want it. That doesn't justify the cost. You need to find a way to say you need it. I need it to do better online streaming. I need it to be able to shoot 4K. I need it to be able to shoot in LUT and S-Log. I need it to be able to blah, 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 blah. If you can invent reasons that you need something you want, that is a need asserting themselves, a want asserting themselves as a need. And I do it all the time. And it's like Brittany says, but they're so shiny. Why wouldn't I get it, right? So yes, this is part of our consumer economy. Continuing on, let's go to our next reading, but it's the same topic, so there's no slowdown. There's no slowdown yet. Now, Thorstein Veblen talks about this when he talks about pecuniary emulation. Before I define that, let me ask you, how does a person in today's world show others that he or she is successful? Give me your thoughts. How do we show one another that we are successful? Give you an example. I kind of feel like I take really good care of my front yard. It's a beautiful yard. My house has curbside appeal. That is a way that I demonstrate to people that I have the money and time to take good care of my things and to enjoy the pleasure that comes with a good yard. This is a way that I communicate that I am successful. Now, David says the car we drive, and then Jocelyn, nice house, nice apartment, right? Aline says the same thing. Our zip code. Eldon says our the way we dress. The clothes and so forth. Education, degree, I like it, right? It's about appearances, house, clothes, education. It's all that good stuff. Okay? Yes. Okay. I contend that there's a word for all of this. The word is bling. I mean, disconnected, reconnecting. Hold on. Okay, hopefully we're back. Let me know that you can still hear and see me. I got a notice saying it disconnected, but it should be connected now. Let me know if you can still hear me. Just say yes. Can you still hear me? Am I still going? Gotcha. Great. Thank you. This is all bling. All right. It's all different types of bling. My full name is Lon W. Schiffbauer, BA, MBA, PhD, SPHR. All those letters after my name are educational bling, right? So this is how we demonstrate to others that we are the bomb, that we rock, that we're successful, okay? Now, there's something that drives this. Veblen says pecuniary emulation. Okay, that's a fancy-ass term. What does it mean? Pecuniary means financial, money. So if you ever work in finance, you'll use the word pecuniary. I never use the word pecuniary, but that's what it means. It means financial, money-based. Emulation means to copy, to mimic, to emulate, to, follow somebody's lead and so forth. So pecuniary emulation is at the root of celebrity endorsements. When we see that, what's his name there? I can't think of these names once I see them and so forth. They wear this kind of watch or wear these kind of shoes or have this kind of scent and hair and all this sort of stuff, right? Well, we want to emulate them. We want to demonstrate that we are financially secure. And so, yeah, Brad Pitt's actually my favorite in there. Leonardo DiCaprio, that's the other guy I was trying to remember. Leonardo DiCaprio, he has a Tag Heuer watch. It's a really nice watch. So we kind of want to be like them and we want to associate ourselves with them and so forth. Yeah, David Beckham is the one doing the Adidas there. Now, to show you an example, this dude. Okay. So, let me tell you the story, and then I'll tell you this guy. This is Chuck Palahniuk. Okay, Chuck Palahniuk, and I don't think I'm pronouncing the name right. I apologize. Chuck Palahniuk. He's an author that I really like. I really like this author. So, Brittany, you and I are about to have a moment, right? It's one of these authors that just, you read everything and you really like them and so forth. The book that you would know him by is Fight Club. Chuck Palahniuk wrote Fight Club, but he's written a whole bunch of other things. Okay. Now, my whole life, and I mean my whole life, I thought these thick, black-rimmed glasses were the ugliest glasses on God's green earth. Only nerds wore these glasses. And if you doubt me, look at the movie Nerds. Just look at the movie poster for the movie Nerds. And they're wearing these glasses. And that's the age I grew up in. The age that I grew up in said that these are the ugliest glasses on earth. And so I always avoided them. Always, 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 always. Until I saw this. This is the kind of glasses, these are the kind of glasses that Chuck wears. And all of a sudden, this switch went off in my head. And instantaneously, I went from loathing that style to loving the style. And I went out that week and got new glasses. And I've been wearing these ever since. 15 years. That's pecuniary emulation. That I would want to kind of vibe with this person that I admire. And we do this financially. Now, we also have conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous consumption is when we buy things with the specific intent of others seeing it. Okay? So, for example, this watch right here, this is a Breitling watch. This is my favorite watch on earth. And as soon as I have a spare $35,000, I'll get that watch. Don't hold your breath. You only wear these watches when you go out to an event. You go to a gala, or you go to a dinner, or you go to a meeting or something. You want to be seen in this gear, right? But when you're just slumming it around the house or working in the yard and so forth, you're not wearing that jewelry. If you're going to Walmart, you're not driving that car. Okay, so this is when you want people to see you in it because you want people to perceive you as successful. Jay says, or culturally, how back a couple years people watched anime were considered nerds. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with superhero movies. When I was growing up, if you liked a superhero, remember my Batman ring, if you liked a superhero, you were a geek and a nerd and a loser. Now, superheroes are everywhere, right? And manga, same thing, right? Yeah, 35 $100,000 for the watch. I kid you not. It's nuts. Okay. All right. This is Bling. I'm not going to read all this, but it basically says that the whole system is designed to support this. Now, let's go back to Victor Lebow and see what he says about this, all right? The measure of social status, of social acceptance, of prestige is now to be found in our consumptive patterns. The very meaning and significance of our lives today expressed in consumptive terms. I mean, wow! If you want to show that you're successful, you have to do it in your consumption. The greater the pressure upon the individual to conform to safe and accepted social standards, the more does he tend to express his own aspirations and his individuality in terms of what he wears, drives, eats, his home, his cars, and so on and so forth, his hobbies. All right, what does he mean? He's saying, listen, we all need to conform. We're all conforming. You have to conform. Don't tell me you don't conform, because the people who don't conform are on the website People of Walmart, okay? We all wear clothes that conform but are just different enough that we are unique. But we are trying to be unique in a frame of conforming. And it's that uniqueness that's going to cost money. So, you know, Jocelyn, you mentioned that $70 haircut, right? And it's a beautiful haircut, but it's your haircut. It's your distinct haircut. It's something that you like that expresses who you are, but it is within a style that is today's style. So you're conforming, but expressing individuality in your slightly different take on it. We all do this, okay? I want to show that I'm a little bit weird, so I have a Batman ring. Now, that cost me money. Now, there's nothing wrong with me wearing a Batman ring. It's slightly different. Now, on the other hand, if I were wearing, I don't know, Freddy Krueger claws or something, that would be weird. That would be outside the bounds of conforming. And, well, this is me expressing my individuality. No, you're just a weird-ass dude. Get out of my face. So we're always struggling for how do we express our individuality within a box. And that's done with our consumption, according to Lebow. Okay. Now, I'm going to go, we still have another section to do, so I'm going to just fly through this. I maintain this is not shallow. I know it sounds shallow. It sounds shallow. It sounds shallow, but it's not. Check this out. Galbraith says, who can say for sure that the deprivation which afflicts him with hunger is more painful than the deprivation which afflicts him with envy for his neighbor's new car? Here's what he's trying to say. Hunger sucks. And so we strive to ensure that we are never hungry. But you know what else sucks? Not being accepted by the community, not being perceived as somebody of value and worth in the community. We need friends. We need to be part of our collective. We are social beings. We have to fit in and be perceived as somebody worth keeping around in order for us to be emotionally and psychologically healthy. And so it's actually really in our best interest that people perceive us as successful, smart, hardworking, ethical, ambitious. When people perceive this in us, they embrace us in their communities. They give us opportunities. They give us support. They give us funding. They give us jobs. They give us all kinds of things that we want. And so it's important that we are perceived as a stable, intelligent, hardworking, successful, funny person. And we do this in our consumption. So, not necessarily negative. ContraPoint's video essay on envy is really an amazing discussion on envy in history and current day. Everybody should subscribe to ContraPoint. Just going to say it. That should be required viewing for everyone. And Brittany, I totally agree with you on her video essay on envy. It's astounding. I'm a ContraPoint supporter, even on Patreon. I support her on Patreon. She is fantastic. Okay, here's my last point. And on the point of ContraPoint, not quite the same, but we're talking RuPaul now. This is a quote from RuPaul. "You're born naked and the rest is drag. Drag is what you put on after you get out of the shower. We're all playing these roles, you know. Even as a kid, I remember thinking, why aren't we talking about the fact that everybody's playing a role? I couldn't get anybody to break the fourth wall and say, everyone's playing a role, right? Are you seeing this?" Okay, so we're all wearing drag. You're at home right now? Probably. Many of you may be at home, which means you're probably in jammies or sweats or something really comfy, and that's great. But when you go out, you have to put on your drag. And it depends on where you're going. If you're going out to this place, you put on these clothes. If you're going out to this place, you have to put on these clothes. If you're going to that job interview, you have to put on these clothes. If you're going to that funeral, you have to put on these clothes. If you're going to that wedding, you have to put on these clothes. It's all drag. None of them are you. Well, maybe one of them is you. I can't say that. Let me take that back. But most of the time, we are acting a role that allows us to be embraced in that moment by that community. Right now, I'm acting a role. Do you think I talk like this with my family? Are you serious? They would run me out of town on a rail. It's like, oh my gosh, Dad is talking again. Heaven help us, right? Although these clothes are actually my daily clothes. I kind of feel like, yeah, you get what you get. But we're all wearing drag. I love this quote. Only wearing hoodies and leggings for everyone to know, right? Actually, hoodies are great. I love hoodies. I absolutely adore hoodies. Okay. We need to take our break now. Are we, we're okay. We're going to have to kind of fly through this next section. Everyone, get up and we're going to take a break. Oh, I don't have much more to teach you in juggling. You guys have been have pretty much seen all I can really do with this simple space and so on and so forth. So the juggling lessons are now more or less done. Nevertheless, get up and stretch a bit. Hit the bathroom if you need to, get a drink. We'll sit and chat for a minute. This is, by the way, this shirt. It's a funny thing. And we're not going to talk about this in detail. We could, because there's a lot to talk about here. It's amazing how expensive good clothes are, clothes that'll last. And so even though I'm dressed like a schlup, it's an LL Bean shirt and they're, whatchamacallit, oh gosh, what's the name of the pants? Duluth. They're Duluth pants. LL Bean top, Duluth pants. I look like I should be at a construction site. And yet, this is a $150 outfit, not including the shoes or anything, right? Actually, it's probably more like $200. It's just crazy how that is. Okay, let's come on back. We're going to finish with Diophysis, and I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Feel free to chime in as you're going to get the max. Actually, you're getting more than max, but feel free to chime in. I'm going to tell you a story my Ford, okay? Back ages ago, my wife and I had this Ford. It's not that car, but it was that year, that model, and that color. So that car, that Ford Escort, looks exactly like the car that we owned. Had to sell the car because we were having kids. We needed more space, so we wanted to upgrade the car and so on and so forth. That's all well and good, but one thing about the car is that at one point I was driving it through a rainstorm, really bad rainstorm, and I went through a flooded road. And basically, it's a 4-cylinder car. I turned it into a 3-cylinder car. All right, so what happened? Well, the head warped. You know, you've got an engine block, and on top of the engine block where all the valves are, there's a head. The head warped a little bit. So a friend of mine and I, we took the head off and took it into a shop, and they shaved the head. But in order for it to fit properly, for the timing to work and so on, they had to put a shim in there. And it was a brass shim. So it was a clearly visible brass color shim all around, you know, marrying the head with the engine block. And it worked great. So now 4 cylinders, fantastic, ready to go. All right. So I had to sell it. That's part one of the story. Now, in this reading, we have two dudes. We have the Stoic Diogenes. And the Stoic Diogenes says, when you're selling something, like me selling a Ford, okay, he says the seller must declare the defects of his wares as far as the law of the land requires, but otherwise, provided he tells no untruths, is entitled as the seller to sell them for as profitably as he can. So I'm selling this car. I want to get as much for this car as I can because we're going to buy a new car. We're a young family, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I want to be truthful and so on and so forth. Well, his pupil, Antipater, disagreed. And this is a great example, by the way, of how you're allowed and encouraged to disagree with your professor. His pupil disagreed. He said, all facts must be revealed, and the purchaser must be as fully informed as the seller. Okay, so you need to disclose everything. Antipater said, or Diogenes says, you only need to say what the law requires you to say. Antipater says, you're required to tell everything. All right, so let me tell you what I did with this car. I really try to be truthful. That's kind of a North Star of mine. That is a value that I hold dear. And I try to be transparent in all things. So when the first person came to look at the car, I'm telling him everything about it, telling him everything, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. We lift the hood, I'm telling. And then at one point I said, now you see that brass shim there? The head warped at one point, and so we went in and had it worked on him. And the guy stopped me in the middle of my sentence and said, wait, the head warped? And I said, yeah, but it's, you know, we went in, we had it worked. He didn't even let me stop. He just got in his car and left. Not another word. Just got in his car and left. Well, I thought, well, crap. I sort of need to sell this car. And I was not expecting that response. So the next person who came, I said, hey, I will answer any and all questions you have. You can open the hood, you can examine it, you can take it to a mechanic and, you know, have the mechanic take a look at it. You can drive it all around. I will answer every single question you've got. But I did not volunteer any information. So the person went through, we opened the hood, he asked a bunch of questions, he took it to a mechanic, the mechanic said it looks great to me, he brought it back, and he bought the car. Now, I never mentioned the warped head, but now the shim is clearly visible, and if he doesn't see it, the mechanic sure as hell would. So, the question is, was that ethical? And so that's what we're going to explore here. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to come to St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay, we're just going to get through to the good stuff that talks about this car. Okay. Disclosing defects. Here we go. We're going to do disclosing defects. All right. This is St. Thomas Aquinas. He has the word saint in his name. That should tell you something. He said, "It is altogether sinful to have recourse to deceit in order to sell a thing for more than its just price, because it deceives one neighbor as to injure him. Hence, contracts should be entirely free from double dealing. The seller must not impose upon the bidder, nor the buyer upon the one that bids against him." Okay. In other words, for me to be ethical, I can't sell it for more than it's worth. Well, now I was selling it at a very, very fair price. Okay. So I was not selling for more than it was worth. So far, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, I'm ethical. All right. Well, then he goes on to say, there is no need to publish beforehand by public crier the defects of the goods one is offering for sale. In other words, by public crier, it says, do you need to put in KSL a list of all the defects? No, you do not need to include, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, a list of all the defects in KSL.com when you're putting the car in classifieds. Because if he were to begin by announcing the defects, the bidders would be frightened to buy, though the ignorance of other qualities that might render the thing good and serviceable. So in other words, nobody's going to come to look at the car because they're looking at all these defects, even though the car is perfectly good and serviceable. Such defect ought to be stated to each individual that offers to buy, and then he will be able to compare the various points one with another and so on and so forth. Okay, now hold on. I don't need to put in KSL that the head warped, but it says here that when the person comes to look at the car, I should explain all the defects. But now watch this. If such like defects be hidden and the seller not make them known, the sale will be illicit and fraudulent, unethical. But there is no need to publish beforehand by public crier the defects for sale and so forth. But now, if the defect be manifest, if you can see the defect, for instance, if a horse have but one eye, or the goods though useless to the buyer, he is not bound to state the defect of the good. Okay, coming back to my car. There is a gold shim around the head of the engine. You got the head, the engine block, a gold shim. That is visible. Furthermore, a mechanic, a professional, would know what that gold shim is, and at the very least would ask about it. Therefore, I felt, and I was 22 years old, so I didn't read all this then. I felt that the defect is manifest. You can clearly see it. Therefore, I do not need to say, do you see that right there? Let me explain it. Okay, so by that account, St. Thomas Aquinas could reasonably say that I sold the car ethically, even though I did not tell them about the warped hood, the warped head. So with all of that, give me your thoughts. You can totally disagree. You have every ground to disagree, because Antipater, the pupil of Diogenes, would disagree. Antipater would say that I sold the car unethically, where St. Thomas Aquinas would say, you kind of followed all the rules as far as I can tell. What do you think? What do you think that was an ethical sale of that car? I'm just curious. Don't worry, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm a good person. Might be, I hope I'm still coming through. It looks like there's a little issue, but yeah, I know that was kind of a boring end. I get it. I get it. So if you have any thoughts there, go ahead and throw them in. I'm going to go ahead and max this out for you guys. Okay, Eldon did say, when buying something, it is always the buyer's discretion. The buyer should make, buyer's discretion. And I did allow them to take it to a mechanic. All right, so buyer's discretion, allowed to go to a mechanic. You could look at the whole thing. That's what I was kind of feeling. Does the warping hurt the ability for the car to drive? Does it affect the driving of the car? No, it drove fantastic. It drove great. You would never know based on the driving that anything ever happened. This is a standard repair for such an issue. I think the way you approached it was ethical, allowing them to ask questions, answering truthfully. Yes, I like it. Jocelyn and Brittany says, well, then that sounds good to me. Christina, I believe it was running and size need of the car to sell was good. They inspected the car and a professional inspected it, so that's good. Let's see. Christy says, I think yes, only because the problem was fixed and you allowed them to take it to a mechanic. Yes, I believe that had I not allowed them to take it to a mechanic and had I not, answered the questions openly and transparently, I think that would have been considered unethical. Nevertheless, reasonable minds can disagree. Remember that. All right, that's it. Oh my gosh, that was a long one and it ended on boring crap. I apologize. Nevertheless, you did it. Same thing applies. Send me an email. Send me an email letting me know you're here. We have over a dozen of you, so I want to make sure that you all get the credits because you went through 2 cycles. That's incredible. And we'll take good care of you. Open and honest to the best of my ability, and it worked out fine. I think so. It was a good little car. It was our first car as newlyweds. Her father bought it for us. So, it was a beat-up little used car from Hertz. It worked great. Hey, Brittany, thank you. Everyone, thank you very much. You are all set. As usual, I will stick around and answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, you are all good, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Gardner. I really appreciate your input today. It was superb. Jamie, you too. We'll see you later. Jaden, have a great day. And I'm reading it, but I'm also telling you have a great day. We'll see you, Eldon and Tom and Brittany. Thanks, David and Christy. We'll see you later. We'll see you later, Jay. No AI Lab today. We're going to meet next week for AI Lab because this week I'm going to go volunteer on campus for some stuff. So no AI Lab today, Christy. Although I did publish a couple of new videos on it. So go to Nutshell Brainery and you'll see two 2-minute videos on stuff that I've learned for the AI lab. So check that out. All right. Well, looks like just about everybody has dropped off. So, Rebecca, thank you very much. You too. And we will see you all. Let's see. Where's the button? There's the button. We'll see you all later on. Have a good one.